So guys, today we're going to be discussing the S23 Ultra versus the S24 FE here. So which phone do you buy? This is always one of my favorite topics to talk about. Should you go with the, quote unquote older flagship here or the S24 FE here? So there's a lot of interesting things here. So the S23 Ultra is around the same price. So you can see in the used refurbished marketplace, you can get it for around $650, $680. But if we look at the S24 FE here, you can see you can also get this one for around $650. But obviously this one is going to be brand new. So should you go with a older flagship or the S24 FE? Let's talk about the pros and cons of both here. All right, so let's talk about the hardware on both of these phones here. So we got a premium designs on both of these phones here. They're both glass and metal. They both have the same kind of camera design as well too, which is really nice. And the biggest difference here with the hardware is the size of these phones. They're almost the same size, with the S23 being a little bit bigger. And the biggest thing you'll notice is that you have a boxier design on the S23 Ultra, and it's not as comfortable as the S24 because the S23 kind of pokes the palm a little bit. But you can kind of solve that with a case. It kind of takes that pressure off the palm here. But two very nice designs on these phones here. The biggest advantage that the S23 is going to have is the S Pen. You kind of have to decide if you're somebody who would care about the S Pen or really use it. You can do digital artwork with this phone. It's very impressive. The artists on YouTube that do some really cool artwork with this. You can also just use it to navigate. It's Bluetooth, so you can take pictures from a distance if you're a content creator with the button. And yeah, it's a really nice thing to have. Samsung has built-in features as well that you could take advantage of with the S23's S Pen. And that is pretty much it. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant as well too. So that's pretty much it for the hardware. So let's talk about these displays here. So you do have a 6.8 inch display on the S23 Ultra. It is a dynamic AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 plus, 1750 nits peak brightness. It is 1440p, and then it is 500 for the PPI. On the S24 FE, it's a 6.7 inch display, so it's a slightly smaller display. It's also dynamic AMOLED, 120 Hz, HDR10 plus, and you actually do have a higher max brightness on the S24 at 1900 nits peak brightness. It does have a lower resolution though of 1080p and 385 for the PPI. One of the first things that's going to stand out is obviously this screen to body ratio is not that great on the S24 FE. It's noticeably chunkier than the S23 for sure. So I would say the S23 gives off a more, flagship luxury experience compared to the S24, especially from the front. From the back, they both look, really good. And also, one thing I've noticed with the S24 FE's display, which Samsung probably will fix in an update, but it's not as colorful as a lot of the other Samsung panels here. So we have that problem with the S24, but they could fix this with an update because I am running it on vividness, but you can see the colors just don't pop like the S23 here. So like I said, it's probably something to do with Samsung's panels that they're using, or something with the software, how they're tuning the displays. But yeah, I think the display on the S23 Ultra is obviously better. There also is one thing you should note: the S23 does have a curved panel here, and you do have a flat panel on the S24 FE, which it could be a big deal if you really don't like curved panels for applying screen protectors and stuff like that. Let's talk about the specs a little bit more here. So we are running Android 14 on both of these devices. We have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 on the S23. We also have 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on this model. And for the S24 FE, we do have Samsung's Exynos 2400E processor. We also do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM as well here. You can see pretty similar scores here, with the Exynos processor beating the 8 Gen 3 and the multi-core score here. which is pretty nice. Like I said, my experience with this Exynos processor so far has been very good. I haven't had any heating issues. The phone is not really slow at all. Animations are very, very smooth. If we look at 3D Mark here for the Nomad Lite test, you can see we got a higher FPS on the S24 FE here at almost 15 frames. We got almost 9 frames on the S23. That's an overall higher score. When we come down here, what's pretty cool about the S23 is we did not lose a percent. We stayed at the 48% for this test. 27 to 28, 5 to 11 FPS, and then you can see we lost a percent on the S24 FE, 24 to 29, and then 10 to 20. So overall, very good scores for the S24 FE. The S23 Ultra is still very efficient here, but that's like I was saying, guys, this processor is not really a bad processor at all. So let's go ahead and we can get into a little speed test, animations here, just check them out. I've been really impressed with this Exynos chipset. About the same in terms of smoothness. Very fast phones. One thing I don't like about the S24 FE is it wobbles quite a bit on the table here. Let's see, Google Earth. Yeah, they're almost about the same in terms of speed, pretty much, or exactly the same. Let's see, YouTube. So speed and animations are pretty much the same on these devices. Like the S24 beat it there a little bit. So yeah, guys, so you know, all of the hate for the Exynos processor is not really necessary. I've been looking in the comments. This processor for me is perfectly fine. Maybe during the long term, we'll see if we run into any issues, but I mean, this processor is perfectly fine. It's a really efficient chipset here. Alright guys, so there is a difference with gaming performance. It looks like the Gen 2 is a little bit better optimized for games like PUBG here. And overall, you can see we're able to play at ultra extreme, so 120 frames here on PUBG. And yeah, it looks really, really good. So if you're a competitive gamer, this game is a little bit more optimized, but I'm not sure about the other games. Call of Duty, it really depends. Genshin and stuff like that, they will run great on both of these phones, but for me, like, PUBG runs a little bit better on the S23. Let's see what we get. And yeah, we're at Extreme Plus, which is good here. We're at 90 frames on the S24 here, which is still good, still feels fast, but if you are like really into gaming, then you know, you could tell the difference between 120 frames and 90 frames for sure. But they both do a great job, no heating problems. So I would say the S23 Ultra has the advantage for me, at least for like PUBG. But we have to do like a more dedicated gaming test here. But they're both great gaming devices, guys. Check out these speakers at max volume. We've got we'll do the S24 first. Yeah, you can tell the S23 has the kind of better speaker. It sounds just a little bit cleaner. The S24 doesn't sound bad at all. I would say the S23, they're almost the same in volume and bass. It just, you have a cleaner sound on the S23 Ultra for sure here. You also do have, and this is a big one, the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, which is a lot quicker than the optical one, which is not bad, but you will notice the difference. The ultrasonic one, you can just kind of like lightly tap this, but with the optical one, you gotta kind of hold it a little bit. So this is also another deciding factor here is going to be the cameras on these phones here. So The S23 Ultra has a much beefier camera setup. It's a 200 megapixel standard with a 10 megapixel telephoto. You also have 3 times optical zoom on here as well too. You also do have a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto that does 10 times optical zoom. You can go all the way up to the 100 times zoom as well. 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 8K 24 and 30. You have a 12 megapixel selfie that can shoot in 4K 60 on here. So the S24, it does have a 50 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel telephoto. This one does the 3 times optical zoom, and you can go all the way up to 30 times zoom on here. And then you also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 8K 30. And then you also have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. So check out these side-by-side stills and video. Let me know what you guys think. Talk about software. So this is a very important thing here. The S23 Ultra got a 4-year pledge update for majorOS updates. The S24 gets the full 7 years of updates. So you will get much more updates with the S24 FE here. So that is one advantage of this phone. They both actually do have the Galaxy AI stuff on here, so you could take advantage of all of that if you're into the, the whole AI thing. You also do have on here pretty good battery life on both of these phones as well too. Now you do have an advantage with the S23. It charges much faster at 45 watts. You also have wireless and reverse wireless charging. The S24 FE, it charges a little bit slower at 25 watts, and you can definitely notice it. You do have wireless and reverse wireless charging on board on here too, which is really good. Samsung desktop support is on here as well too, for those that were wondering. And yeah, so very good phones, very good battery life on both of these phones as well too. So the major pros here, so the pros with the S23 Ultra, right? Fingerprint scanner is faster. You have a much better zooming capability on the S23 Ultra as well too. You also get the S Pen. I think the display is better on the S23. And then you also do have, I think the processors are pretty kind of even, I guess. You do have better optimization, I think, on this Gen 2. But yeah, so what do you guys think about this processor? What do you guys think about the overall phone experience? The advantage that the S24 has is really, it gets the updates, right? It's cheaper, of course, and you get it new, right? And then you also do have on here, I guess I would say a more comfortable design, I guess. But that is pretty much it. I think the S23 Ultra, if you were to ask me which phone I would go with, I would just get the S23. I'm not really pressed about the updates like that, in my opinion. But again, let me know what you guys think.